Trevor. Um, I think I'm up in live, but can you just check how it says here my audio is not good? It you can hear. I think I'm up in live. Can you just check how it says here my audio is not good? You can hear. Well, I guess I can hear. Hey, James. Hey, Jason. I guess I can hear. Hey, James. There it is. There it is. Hi, Susan. So here we are back at another Monday. It seems like, honestly, like weeks go by in between Mondays, and then then we're back, and it's Monday again. Just I don't know, the time thing is really weird. that's that's me cleaning um, the camera lens a little bit. So I look foggy. Do I look foggy? Or is that just me? Hi, Jelly. Hey, you guys. So welcome. We're almost at 7, and we'll just maybe hang around for a little bit till a few minutes after 7, and then we'll start. So I'm on Zoom, and you guys could come to Zoom if you'd like. It would be, it's doable. And I'm just going to post I'm going to post the Zoom. Oh, there it is down here. The Zoom entry code if you want to come over. And because there we go. So I'm just doing that right now. I'm going to post the entry code for Zoom, and then there we go. Oh, there it is. I think I found it. Yes, I did. And there, I got it. And so I'm going to send this to, I'm going to put it on the here. There it is. So it's there if you want to. There. I've got somebody texting me, and I tell him that we're on live now. Okay, you guys. So here we are. There's a few of us here. So tonight, I think well, I don't think I know that I have some things to share this evening that might rub you the wrong way. That might maybe might even piss you off, and I'd like to do that actually. I think it's almost necessary sometimes to get a little pissed off before we kind of see what's going on, to kind of get shocked a bit, to see what's happening in our lives, and to see where we are. It's funny how I feel like I've transformed from a place of being so careful, and just wanting to talk to you about meditation and the benefits of meditation, and maybe I just didn't get it, and I've gotten it now at a much deeper level, and so I do want to share with you um, something that I think is available for everyone, for you, for me, and yet it's sitting right there, and we can't see it. And my goal tonight is to wake us all up a little bit around seeing what's there that we can't see, or that we ignore, or that we look away from. Um, that's my goal, Adrian. I,
Right?
and so that's the plan for this evening, is to maybe come out a little stronger than I normally have in the past, um, and hopefully shake you up a little bit. And if at the end of this evening, if you're pissed off, or you don't like what I have to say, that's great. that'll be that'll I'll have done my job. But hopefully something will tweak a little bit, and there'll be some inkling, even an inkling, that there's a possibility uh, for us all to live in a much, it's hard to say, but a much cleaner way, a much more direct way, a much more, which in the results of that is that we're able to be more in our full potential in each moment. And so I want to discuss a couple of things, and we're going to meditate first, but when we get back to this, we're going to talk about a couple of things, like maybe we're setting the bar very low for what's available for all of us on the planet. Maybe we're setting the bar very low, and maybe some of us are just trying to survive when there's so much more in each moment. And we'll talk about that. And uh, and and maybe we've been listening to a voice that tells us that we're doing okay. We're okay. Yeah, we're fine. We got this. And we don't know ourselves well enough to know what that voice is. We haven't actually done enough self exploration to look at who's talking, who's telling me that. And so the possibility is to look past that, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. I know that when I first started this search, I knew that something was missing, and I thought it was something mystical, and and it's not necessarily something mystical. I thought it was something that only very few people had access to, and I found that that's not true either. And hi, Trev, welcome. And so, you know, I spent a lot of years traveling down a whole bunch of different roads, looking for this thing that I thought was missing, or that I could find, so that somehow I could be more pleased with myself, or more happy about life, or there would be something filled up in me. And I just never got that the thing I was looking for wasn't outside of me. And I know that if I say that right now, that many of us will think, oh yeah, okay, I know what he's talking about. But I doubt that. I really doubt that. And that's what I hope to maybe trouble you with this evening, if nothing else, to leave you with a little bit of holy shit, okay, maybe there is something that I haven't figured out or you haven't figured out yet. Because the danger, of course, is that we think we figured it out. And as soon as I think I figured it out, I'm fucked in a way. And then that's kind of a contradiction because I'm about to tell you that I kind of figured it out, but I haven't figured it out in the sense of me figuring it out. I don't know how to say it, but anyway, but I got some symptoms I'm going to talk about that many of us have lived in, and I can be in myself in this time sometimes with that tell me that I'm not connected. I'm not really here. I'm in my mind. And we'll talk about those after the meditation. Anyway, we're going to meditate for a little bit because I do believe that, settling down, being quiet, there's some teachers that say that's all we need is to be quiet. And so to settle down for a minute in meditation and to be quiet can be part of the process if there's really a process. Adrian, how are you?
I'm doing, thank you. Yes. Glad to be here.
Nice. I'm glad you're here too.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Today making masks. I was sewing like crazy today.
Really?
My sewing game is coming up. I was frustrated with it a lot, but now I'm starting to be fast and efficient. It's kind of becoming fun because the line is straight.
Hats off to you for jumping in.
Yeah, it's just what, the need is there. So the demand is there. And when there's a demand, someone has to do the work. And it turns out to be me right now.
Wow.
Yeah, we're looking for someone to take that place. I don't want to be behind a sewing machine for the next 2 months. But
no, but still,
it's I have to worry about.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you, ego would tell us sometimes that, that we're not, that maybe we're above that, or that I think it's great that you just jump in and.
Yeah, no, all aspects are equal.
Yes. Yeah.
It's one big chain. So.
Yes, and yet you may be better suited to do some other things.
Yes, for sure. Like I definitely neglect certain things, although being in production helps me work out production issues.
Yes.
Like being right there doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like there's much to be said. Actually, I would say one regret that I have, if it was as much of a regret, but how should I say, one thing that I would recommend my former self or anyone else when running a business is to get involved with every single step and really be there. If you're good at doing these kind of things, figuring out, if you're like the type of person who's a strong problem solver, get involved with everything, because you can't trust everyone to have that capacity, and they may be doing things that are redundant, or you may get inspired or something like that. So
yes,
just some things I'm discovering very late in the game.
Well, who's to say it's late in the game?
Yeah, true. It's very early in the game.
Who's to say it's a game?
Yeah, true.
This is it.
So this is nice for me now to sit down and not see a needle go up and down for a while.
Okay. All right. So we're going to sit for a while, and we've got some folks that have joined us, and it's funny. A couple hours ago, I was sitting here and thinking, what's going to happen tonight? And then I thought, fuck it. I'm just going to share the way I share often with the newcomer in the 12-step world. And it's so much easier there because they're actually often in desperation. And they just need to be pointed out that surrender is the vehicle. Surrender to let go of, to achieve the direct experience really is the answer, and then to maintain that experience, through some practices, but to be in that experience. And it comes to some of the people in the burning bush type of an experience. Like it literally comes like, oh my gosh, you know, not that it's outside of them, but that they see that they are that, and life has changed forever. But I think that many of us are often living in a mediocre type of an existence. So no real danger. Life is not about to fall apart. The boat isn't really sinking, but we're not living each moment in our full potential. And it's a hard thing to talk about. So I hope to talk about. I just made a few notes earlier because it all just came in, you know, and to talk a little bit about what does it look like to be living, you know, from fear. What does it look like to be living in ego? What does it look like, you know, to be living in complaint? And I'll talk about my own experience because I've lived many years in all of those things, and but it's easy to be living in those and not identify them, you know, and not to recognize that there's literally another way to be, another way to live, another possibility. So that's after we meditate, what I hope to share and have some conversation about. There we go. So thanks for being here. Trevor, thanks for being here. And everybody that's on the, you know, on the Facebook, thank you, you guys. I can see you. And if you have questions or thoughts, make notes, and I can see them come up. I've got my little iPad here, and it shows, you know, who's here, and you know, yeah. So that's it. So let's sit for a few minutes. It's 7:15. Just drop in, you know, maybe for 10 minutes, we're just going to drop into this. Just recognize that there's nothing really to do in meditation. If we're aiming for anything, it's just a bit of stillness. And in the meditation, if your mind is going, kind of the beginning of the process is to watch the mind. Be in your breath. When I say being your breath, I mean to just bring our attention to the breath as we draw it into our body. Just, or as our body draws it in, because it's not really something that we do. It's just being done. Just include any noises that are happening in the room or the space that you're in. Remember that it's all just part of what is now. Just include them. Use them to bring you into this moment. Just remember, when we're meditating, we're not doing anything. We're just being here in your breath, just being here. everyone. Just come back when you're ready. Hey, Trevor, you know that camera just cuts you off right at the glasses. You tip the screen just a little bit. We get the full. Oh yeah. There you are. Hey Lowell, nice to have you join us.
Hi, yeah, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
So I kind of did a little introduction a few minutes ago before our meditation to what I thought we might talk about tonight and what came to me to speak about. And I have to tell you that Adrian got me hooked on this guy, and now I followed the lineage to Papaji, and then I followed the lineage to Ramana Maharishi, the big guy, and then from him out to a whole bunch of other teachers that have come out of that lineage, and the simplicity of the practice, well, which we can't even call a practice really, is what it is, a process really of self-examination, or letting go of the things that we think are me. I am a father, I am whatever it is that I've decided I am, to have in the process let go of that. And I realized that this whole subject, I think in the city of Calgary, I could find millions or hundreds of thousands more people that would be able to speak about travel than would be able to speak about this subject, and the subject of we'll call it self-realization. We'll call it awakening. We could call it enlightenment. We could call it whatever we want. It's not something we were cued on as kids. Nobody said to us when we were 3 or 4, how is your relationship with the spirit world, or how is it, we didn't get conversation like that. Everything that was shared with us mostly was meant to manage us. So there was a fair amount of conversation about some objective God, some God that was apart from us, that was always watching, and he and Santa Claus were quite close together, and in a sense, because Santa Claus knew as well whether we were behaving or not. and so we weren't really, there was no basis for us to look at what our relationship was and is to universal intelligence, to the realm that we live in, the energy we're surrounded by, the thing that was there before we came and that is there after we leave, the only real solid, non-changing, undescribable part of our life that we have an opportunity to be, I don't want to say involved with, but what's happened though is that we pretty much not even been told about it. We didn't, nobody said very much about you know, a number of religions had an idea or gave us some kind of an idea. But so for many of us, we've been living in what I will call now the really a very low functioning potential for what we have. And I can only use myself as an example. My conditioning about myself was that I wasn't very smart. My conditioning about myself was that I wasn't good enough, or that there was something missing. And so I was told a lot of things about myself that really weren't true, but I was told that I had to somehow, from this low reservoir of substance, I had to drum up a life. I had to be successful. I had to, with very little resources, and even less than, because I never ever went to school and all of those things. With very little resources, I was supposed to somehow manage this all and be in relationship, be married, raise kids, all of these things on this planet I was supposed to do. And nobody told me, or if they did, I couldn't hear them. And I suspect they did. I just couldn't hear them. And the truth is, I know that they did, but I couldn't hear them. But the thing that I couldn't hear was that there was an endless resource. There was no need for me to try to manage this life on my own. That I could live in a free state if I chose to. And but somehow the state that I got connected to was more fear-based, ego-based, pride-based. And so if you told me about this universal intelligence, and you did, I would say, yeah, but so I kind of knew about it and I could talk about it, but I didn't experience it. And now, having experienced it and experiencing it, I see how simple life is. It's like, oh my God, there's no pun intended. There's nothing. No, I literally only need to stay out of the road. And for me, just to listen and kind of follow direction, and it seems so simple now. And watch for me. There's areas where I still where my old way of thinking can override a bit. Sometimes the two areas that I think that are sometimes the most difficult. One would be relationship, I think, and the other would be around money, but nothing like it has been. Most of my life, I was tormented in a way because I thought I was supposed to be a certain way in those areas, and I fell so far short of my own expectations that it was a spiral. In a way, my falling short created more falling short, but I was, and I've said this so many times before, but I didn't really get that I was really at the banquet table of life, and I was eating off the floor, crumbs off the floor, so even with Eckhart Tolle said to live in the moment, and I didn't understand. I thought the trick was to live in the moment, but what I didn't understand is that what's here now, is this this oneness. So it isn't really, if I'm focused on living in the moment, then I'm not here. If you get that, I mean, so it isn't about focusing on that. It's having an awareness, I guess. But if I'm focusing on living in the moment, I'm doing something. And when I'm doing something, I'm generally doing something to get something. So Adrian, I said that I was going to kind of draw some parallels earlier with often with those of us in recovery. You know, the beautiful thing about drug and alcohol addiction is it's an extreme example of self-will run riot. It's an extreme example of selfishness and you know, and self-will, and the alcoholic or the addict is always trying to manage the show, always trying to arrange the scene, and we have a merriment of tools. We'll use anger, or we'll use we can be generous or loving, but all of the tools are still wrapped around us trying to get our way. And so we're not really being that way. And if we're using the tools to get, there's a lie in there. And the lie, of course, in many cases, many people will buy the lie, but we can't, because we know the lie. And so it becomes a spiral of not enough, of shame, of guilt, because we know, and somehow the deep-seated fear in the alcoholic or addict is that if he or she really drops the mask, really surrenders, really throws in the towel, that all will be lost. That the only thing that's holding it together is our self-will, and the great thing about mixing alcohol and drugs into that is that it sinks the ship quite quickly, usually. The calamities that follow, the disasters that follow are huge. And that, of course, though, the trouble with the alcoholic and the addict is we tend to blame others. Mm-hmm. If they only did what we wanted them to do, if they would only behave, if people would only do as we said, everything would be fine. And not to even consider that others have their own plan. So the beauty of the surrender that is that, like when we really surrender and we just say, okay, I give up. I don't, need to do anything or be anything. This universal intelligence, this thing we live in, that we're totally, I don't know how to describe it. Well, what's come is a complete relaxation into this moment, into knowing that there's nothing missing. But for me, it's seen many years of struggle, and not to find that, but to try to deny that, that there was the possibility of peace, and a fear of that. The ego was saying, no, you can't go there, and even though I didn't really know what it was that I was denying, and I somehow had made up my mind years and years ago that if I was financially successful, I would be happy. Or if I got all my things put together, relationship-wise, and all those things put together, that this happiness or bliss would come to me. And when it seemed like I had made some great strides, if you will, towards this before you invited me to come to Rishikesh earlier this year, Adrian, and our friend Muji, who I've probably listened to hundreds of hours of, because he really says the same thing over and over and over and over again. But our friend Muji basically says that if we recognize, in a way we don't even have to recognize, we just, for the moment, let everything go. And I love how he puts it in, just for now. You can pick it up later, and just to let it go. And it's almost a little trick of the mind, because the mind says, okay, we can just let it go for a minute, and everything kind of falls away. And for me, I sit and listen to him, and I drop into this place of nothingness, and it doesn't mean that my mind isn't still going on, but it's over there. Do you know what I mean, Adrian? It's not. It can be still. It's like the ever-ready bear beating the drum. It's over there beating the drum, but it has no. I have no attachment to it.
Is that happening now, David?
Well, mostly nothing's happening now. It's like, just, do you know what I mean? There's
Right.
there isn't any.
Like you're in the same, like, because you're referring it like as a past thing, right?
Mhm. Well, sometimes it is. When I was just telling you about it right now, I was in the shower this morning, and it kind of, and in the shower this morning, I dropped into that space.
Right. But
You know?
but we're like, we just did a meditation, yes?
Mhm.
And so this space that you're speaking of, that you say I drop in,
Mhm.
the one who drops into it, who is that one? Because this is the misunderstanding. We think that we're dropping into it, and then we're speaking about the personality and the person
Mhm.
who is attaining the
Yes.
dropping in experience. But that's not quite it. It for some time plays like this.
Yes, and I think that's what's happening. I don't, I've had more glimpses of the total emptiness, where there is no
Right.
me or I there. There's no, there's nothing to see, nothing
Yes.
to report. And I think that what you're saying is well, I just let go of trying with it to, and but I've also let go of the idea that I can't talk about it, because I'm not there all the time.
Right. But you are out there all the time,
Of course.
because you are it.
Yes, yeah. Um,
But you're not, maybe your awareness isn't always on the fact that you're there all the time.
yeah,
Sometimes your awareness shifts about past events, and it
Yeah.
speaks about past events.
because
Because
ego
what's
for me
happening
comes up
then?
and says, who it says, this conversation says, who are you to talk about these things? And I've just kind of said, well, I
So the
don't know.
question then is, who are you not to?
Yes, of course. And
that's
there's
not a,
that question, but that could be.
that's not an egoistic response. It's more of a love response, saying, thank you for whatever concern you're concerned about, ego. This is what we're doing. This is what we're here for. Thank you for sharing with me, right? Like, I'm learning so much, right? So your ego can learn from me now that I've said it. Lowell has said to your ego, I want to hear it, even if your ego doesn't want to have you share it.
Yes, I know. So I guess I just there's an acknowledgement that there is, for me, that there's a conversation that goes on, and I watch it and step in anyway, to be here in this moment, and
I appreciate that you talking about, like, one of the I guess one of the phrases is shelving it, putting it aside, you know. And with me, what I've some of my past mental, boy, that sucked or whatever. I had to just tell my mind, I get it. The injustice is clear. Can we just, I get your point. And then I'd have like 15 different reasons why I was so injustice, and I was feeling it every single point. You know, I was just getting to wow. And it was a real cool realization that no, I can just say later, you got it, all the details. And that has led me to where you're similar, reflecting in your own language, this it's okay. The now is, where are you now? You're fine. and then later now to where I'm enjoy realizing that okayness comes from this not me self that kind of is me, which is love. You know, I call that, you know, I call God love, right? This infinite, this universal constant, you know. So yeah, keep sharing. I'm with you on that.
Thank you. So it seems that, you know, of course, I don't know who's listening and who's here on Facebook and who's not. But I wanted to point out that often, if in life we're, you know, wondering, how do I say this? You know, I've had people get in touch with me a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and they want something, but they seem to think that something needs to be fixed outside of them before the something can happen inside, or that the problem is in the relationship, or the problem is with their family, or the problem is with the money, or the problem is with health. And I just want to share that all of those things may never change. You know, that's life.
And they might get worse.
And they might and the possibility is to be here, you know, and if you watch the mind, if you watch the thinking and recognize that it's not you, it just goes on. But one of the things that I've realized in the last while is that it's not just that it goes on, but if I attach to it or I engage with it, I give it power. It does have power in a way on its own. If I give it power, if I and I can give it power by bringing in fear, by saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to end up in, this way or that way, or I'm always going to be alone," and it's those kind of thoughts, and we give them energy or we attach to them, then it seems that those things manifest. And so the process of letting go of attachment to perceived results, things we might be afraid of, things that, you know, that we have made up in our mind that if that happens, that's the worst happening thing, just to let it go, just to say, okay, in this moment, I'm here, wherever here is. In this moment, I'm sitting on this couch, you know, I'm with friends, I'm in my breath, and come into this moment, into the breath, into this second, into this instant. And here is where we meet everything that is. And so what I'm hoping to share is that that's possible. And with some practice, I mean, I've watched this happen over and over and over again in my experience with Mooji and Papaji, and where people are having these experiences, and some of them are in that experience for a long, long time of bliss Now, it doesn't mean that they don't go about their life, but some of the reports and what I see happening in my life right now is that all I have to do is listen and follow through in a way. I mean, there's the practical, I still brush my teeth, but I don't have to plan. It just is opening. And when I have let go of needing to control or needing to get where I think I'm supposed to be, I have no idea where I'm supposed to be. What I love about my world in what they've taught me in the 12-step program is that if there is an intention, it's to serve or to do good or to help out or to be to share love. You know, if that's you know, even that may be too much. Even that could take me out of, because there can be expectations around that for myself. So just to relax and to follow each moment and when something comes, to follow through, and not to even give a second thought to the results. I find myself in a situation where I'm working, or I don't know that we can call it work, but I'm spending time at this treatment center, and I'm getting to be with these young men face to face, and so I'm just there, and I just follow. And how did that happen? And so I think that some of the signs that we're running the show could be, and I just noted a few. If we're in complaint, we're probably still running the show, and we're, if I'm saying, oh, this shouldn't be this way or that shouldn't be that way, or those bastards in Ottawa, whatever the complaint is, and often they're very justified, so I found that I don't really have any causes anymore. There's nothing for me to get behind, because it's not my business. It's truly not my business anymore. And so I find I'm much less in complaint. Although stuff does come up. I went to rent a car today because we're going to go on a day trip tomorrow, and it didn't work out. And I felt myself get, oh, okay. And I went and sat in my car, and I thought, well, okay, so this wasn't, I could see where I'd actually changed the plan. The direction was to go to this shop, and it would all unfold at this shop. And I went to another shop. I didn't go where I was supposed to go. And I went to this other shop, and they said, no, this is not going to work because, things have happened financially for me in the last couple of years. And so then I got home, and I thought, okay. And I called the other shop, and they said, yeah, come on in. We can organize it for you in the morning. So sometimes ego says that it has its own plans, and when I follow them, then things don't often work. But that's what happened today. So I felt myself get tight. I got contracted, and then I sat in the car for a minute and kind of let it go, and I expanded, and then the thought came, well, this wasn't where you were supposed to be anyway. I literally it was like a direct communication that I changed the plan, went to another shop anyway. So I think when we're in complaint, that's a good, just watch when you're out there, and if you're associating and everybody in your crowd is complaining, if that's, then you might step back a bit, not to judge, just step back and find a crowd that isn't complaining, and then complaint takes us out of the moment. We're not really living. We're saying that we know better, and when I recognized that my limited resources from my conditioned belief, from all the information that I'd gotten from my mom, my dad, I like, it's not like I have a huge resource. I didn't go to school, so I didn't get an education. So I don't have that resource encumbered by, and so I was always making decisions from, usually from fear, not knowing or understanding what was happening in the world, and from a very small place. And now I don't have to make, those decisions, and because I've tapped into an infinite intelligence that you know makes things
That's awesome.
in a way go. There's nothing. There's no reason to complain, or nothing to complain about in this moment. And so I just wanted to mention about complaint. And then another thing that seems to happen if we're running the show is that there's always a problem. We're kind of going from problem to problem, and we're in the problem, and and I often feel like sometimes when we're in the problem, it's like we're arranging the seats on the Titanic. It's not, so in the problem doesn't seem to work. But if you're there, you're there. I remember Paul used to say, just, look, if you're smoking, just smoke. If you're drinking, just drink. If you just be who you are until it's moved through in a way, because if I try to be a better person, I'm still running the show. I had to get for me to a place of surrender where, okay, I cannot change myself. I just have to let go of myself and allow life to live me, as opposed to me trying to live it. And so that's the when we are living by a set of rules or dogma, it's contracted again, it's restricted. We're always trying to figure out, it's like bumper cars. We're always bumping into each other, and so just to let go of trying to get it right, living in right and wrong. So that's just a couple of things that right and wrong. The other thing is that I find for me to let go of certainty. I work with a man at the treatment center that often he's like really certain, like this is the way it has to be, and sometimes he gets me. I'm like, oh, and I jump in, and then I realize that, oh, and I settle down and I breathe, and usually in a couple of minutes he's moved. He's like, oh, okay, well maybe and he lets go of this certainty, and often certainty comes from fear. We for me, I had this fear of not knowing, or of appearing like I didn't know. I wanted the world to think that I knew, and so I would be quite certain about things, and so that I wouldn't maybe be questioned or whatever. But certainty for me now, I recognize, is again me trying to run the show. It's my ego. So my teacher years ago, Paul, used to say that that we're talking about was really us living in our full potential. And I never understood what he meant, that there was the possibility to live in our full potential. And he would say, just be here now. Be here now. Just, and somehow, I couldn't see it. And so if you're listening and you can't see it, just relax into that. Just say, okay, you know what? I know what this stuff is he's talking about. But sit with Mooji and listen, and Papaji and listen, and Ram Dass and listen. And it starts to melt, we get defrosted. I listened to Mooji say that the other day about it was early in the satsang in Rishikesh, and somebody got up to speak, and they were fairly certain about a bunch of things. And he said, how long are you here for? and the guy said he was going to be there for 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever. He said, oh, okay, just be in the energy. Just be in the energy. Maybe come up again and if, later. And he said, you can be in this energy and literally be defrosted, and start to expand. And we're surrounded in love. We can be in this love, and the love opens us up, and all of our certainty and all of our complaint and all of our knowing drops away, and we're like, loosened up and living in a more expanded, unconditional, accepting, loving place, and then into a spot of real surrender. And it's interesting that that used to be, and I think that Ramanan, what's his last name? Ramanan
Maharishi.
Yeah.
Ramana Maharishi, I think it is.
Yes, he used to say, and he was in the 20s and 30s, I think, but he was one of the first that recorded that used to say that this needed, that we didn't need to go live in a cave. That we need to be able to take this on the street. This is, and be living in the state, and still partaking and being part of life, and the universe will take us where we need to go. There's some talk that maybe everything was already ordained, everything was already set. That we didn't really have possibly as much free will as we thought, and we recognize this as grace. It's interesting that our conception can be that all the great things that happened are God's grace, and the things that we didn't like, the car accident, the sickness, the passing of our loved ones, were not God's grace. And what if the whole thing is God's grace, and somehow we were just in resistance? And the truth is, maybe even the resistance was God's grace, and necessary, and to be, and yet even being wherever we are isn't anywhere, so it doesn't really matter.
So really what you're saying now is that if you could see it like that, that then you're completely coming out of complaint.
Yes.
So you're not complaining about the car accident anymore. You're not complaining about your resistance anymore.
Then the sweet spot in that, I think, Adrian, is that then there's nothing to forgive anybody for ever. There's no forgiveness is in at one level, of course, in consciousness, maybe forgiveness is an important piece, but I think that we get to a place where everything was exactly as it was needed to be. There's nothing or nobody.
I think that is so, but that understanding has to come from a higher place than what the mind
Oh, yes. Yeah.
likes to say, because you see some beings who speak like this also, and it's a convenient way to circumvent certain realities that may be still true for them. So I think at a certain level, when the full acceptance has come, then I think that will be seen. You know, and they'll be seen, but I think one should not conclude this. That needs to be seen
Mhm.
as something that one has come to
Yes.
via the fact that one sees the divinity of all.
Yes. When I'm sharing with people, sometimes one-on-one, and when we talk about, because often part of what keeps us in a contracted place is the victim story. That friggin' Adrian did this to me and he did that to me,
Right.
so there's really no upside to being in a victim place, but it seems that if I share, well, can you forgive Adrian for that? Because and then we're still in the head, I think, with that. It's not really okay. Yes, I'll forgive him, but I'm still saying that I knew better than the than the experience or than life. So if we can find a place of gratitude,
Yes, saying thank you.
yes, a
Yeah,
place of gratitude
thank you.
for somebody's behavior that we found. And I shared that with somebody the other day, and she went immediately to, yeah, but I can't forgive the rapist. I can't forget the child molester or the pedophile. Or all
That's
of that.
maybe not a good place to start.
Yeah. Well. What rapist? What
I know.
No, but can I just pause
Yeah,
on that one? Because I
yeah.
just in the spirit of love, actually alive spirit of love, all is innocent except for evil. So what rapist?
Except for who?
What except for evil? Everything violated, I live. Evil. So everything else is innocent, and so therefore, yeah, I agree. There's no need for forgiveness. The behaviors that are harmful are done by, especially those kind of behaviors, are people who are grossly under the influence of evil. The mindset of it, everything violate I live, and the entity of it, doing everything in its power to draw that person away from love and everything around it and so on. Because love is the opposite of that. Like all
So
and so love goes, hey, I want to allow all volitional, voluminous, exciting, excellent expression. Harmful stuff is going to be dealt with, but everything is innocent. Everyone's innocent and evil. Go over there, please be harmful by yourself. Please, that's it. And everyone else if they're acting uninnocent, like a child, it's, well, hey, Johnny, that's not a toy, that's a sword. And same with these acts of violence that are out there that are very gross. And I'm like, hey, these people are innocent. Love views them as innocent as I do, and they're under the influence of something that is not them.
Lowell.
That's my opinion on it. So
Okay.
like, hey, I just want to say this woman has this emotion of it, and I'm like, hold on now. Even that emotion of it is under the influence of evil to draw you away from it. Hey, we're all innocent. So.
Yes. So are you open to a possibility?
Absolutely.
Okay. I love the expression in the metaphor, the story of Christ. The ultimate piece of that story was Christ on the cross, and he said, basically, he gave them all a pass. He said, forgive them, for they know not what they do, and so they were all innocent. And in that story, now I'm not a big teller of Christian stories, but I just recognized that his example, that piece wasn't there by accident. That's a great opportunity for all of us to, no matter what the transgression, to recognize that here was this fellow Jesus who was being abused and hung on a cross and killed, and he had the presence in this story to say, he let them all off the hook. He gave them all a pass. And I think that when we talk about good or evil, of course, it becomes, it automatically can take us into a debate.
Yeah, I'm not talking about good versus evil. That's from the knowledge of the good of evil tree. I'm talking about love versus evil, and I'm off of that tree, and I'm onto the.
Yeah.
Let's have breakfast from the other trees, and let's because
Well,
love says.
Do you want me to just lay down, or do you want me to share? I hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just to emphasize that love is like let's celebrate each other.
I understand.
Right now, yeah. So that's the spirit of love, right?
So I'll acknowledge that I don't know. My experience is, though, I don't know, but my experience is that evil, even the conversation of it, puts us in a place of separation. Everybody becomes separate then. And doesn't, if there's love, is it possible that there's only love?
Yeah, I wrote a flow chart of how that works, and it actually kind of makes it hard. It's trying to make a 3, 4 circles into like that unified thing,
love,
and yeah, it goes down to where even the grace factors that part of I live is there's half of evil understands there's an I and there's a live, and both of those are in the category of love. So evil itself, insanely, has 50% part of love going, I'm allowing you to do your thing. You'll come back to me at some point. And this is where I kind of wanted to touch back into predestination-y stuff. The story's not over. Love is still working with evil, going, hey, you'll come on, you'll get it. And there is, the love story is continuing on, and we're all part of it. And so we're here now doing our piece, and as love's doing its piece with evil itself, there is an end story, love ending, great loving.
So I hear you, and I hear quite a bit of certainty around this theory, and I hear what you're saying, and
yeah, it's just a scenario.
Yes,
a simulation in my mind. Yeah,
but for me, I what happens with the idea, and of course, we can really get kind of caught in the intellectual of this conversation, and truly what I'm hoping to
and we don't have to. I dip into it just to try to make sense to the scientific mindy types out there, like, hey, love is number one, let's get on that. But yeah, we don't have to get scientific about it.
But love is number one, and what if there is no number two?
It's a good question. I'm not seeing the evidence of it.
Okay, so follow this trend just for a second. Imagine just for a minute, that we let everything go, all of our ideas of who we are, all of our ideas of what life is, all of our thoughts of how things work, and we're totally exposed. There is no story. We're in our complete natural state. There's just this moment. There's no story from the past. There's no possibility in the future. There's just this moment now. And in this moment, as we breathe in to this one, into this moment, into this now, What is there? My experience is there's just this now. There is no in this natural state, in this oneness, there's love. There's not even, we can't even call it love. It's beyond love in a way. It is beyond love. So no separation, no right, no wrong. Hey, just a possibility. This is it. And from there, all things are possible. Everything comes from there. Everything is that. Damn. Thanks, Lowell. Beautiful. My gosh. Aren't we lucky?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Aren't we lucky? I'm just looking at what time of day it is. It's a little after 8. Oh, man. Thank you, you guys. If I could leave us with anything, my idea, my thought, my suggestion is to search diligently, to really look. That all of the things we think we have to work to get will come as we become less attached to them coming, and more connected, or more in this moment, in source, in love, and so my coaching, if you will, is to focus in that direction. Focus in, and I don't like to call it spirituality. I think that the word spirituality can separate us from the one. There's so many concepts, but as long as we recognize that that's what they are, their ideas, their concepts, because this thing, it can't be described. But it isn't separate from you. It is you. It is us, and it is now. And to focus in that way. And it's interesting in listening to all the the things that I've been listening to, and I'm listening and seeing the possibility of how our mind will say that, if you study for 33 years and and you follow all these teachers, and that possibly something you will be rewarded, like it's something from outside of us. Everything and every way that we talk about it often is as if it's something outside of us that we can achieve or get or be rewarded, and that's not the case. The case is that really, if we turn towards that, and even if it's in a simple prayer, you know, help me. Just to, you know, whoever, even if we don't know who me is, and just to be asked. And I talked to a young man last night who's in the treatment center and struggling, really struggling, and I tried to talk to him in a language where he would see the benefits of reaching out, of prayer, if you will, meditation, and I said to him, imagine that where you're at, because he's depressed and he's feeling guilt and he's you know he's depressed. So imagine where you're at, that we're living in this amazing spiritual world, because that was the only word I could use, and that there's like spiritual beings everywhere all around us, and we're totally encompassed in these spiritual beings. And when we're in complaint, we're contracted. When we're in fear, we're contracted. When we're in judgment, we're contracted, and our energy gets very low. And I said, imagine that when our energy is very low and contracted, they can't actually see us hardly. We're almost invisible. And that when we start to expand and we say, help me, or, we're in prayer, we say, thy will be done. We say, show me what you'd have me to be. We start to open up. Then they see us. It's like our light comes on, and the spiritual, this is an analogy and a metaphor, but the story, and he got it. He was like, oh, so to him, the more you're like this, pull yourself out of there with prayer, and we're then expanded. In we have an energy of our own, and it's expanded, and we can be seen, and then more energy comes to us, and we're connected, and we start to hear the intuition of God, or the voice of God, if you will, or and the more we start to pay attention and say yes is the magic word. Yes, I'm here. Yes, show me what you'd have me to be. Yes, guide me and strengthen me. Yes, then the more we're available for that flow to come through us, the more the flow comes through us, and he seemed to get it. It was like, oh, okay, and it was in a language that, because sometimes we've clouded the language of spirituality, and we've made it exclusive, and we've made it hard to understand, and so many of us have come through thinking that it's for other guys, or we had to be somehow special, and I remember thinking that in my early days in recovery, if there was a God, he wouldn't want to have much to do with me, because I had this idea that I was such a bad guy. And I'm still the same bad guy in a way, and yet I think God loves bad guys. If there were a separate God, he loves bad guys, and go for it, be that bad guy. So anyway, that was my moment with him last night, and it was beautiful. And thank you for allowing me to share and be here and do this. And Adrian, thank you. I didn't give you, you didn't share much tonight, but I seem to have a lot to, took a lot of the time. Do you have anything you want to say?
I'm just very glad from the space from which you're sharing, David.
Yeah. Just yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
And also, I was really. It's weird, because you started talking about the inner play of the addict a little bit. That you're very familiar with that. What I would say is almost like a little bit of a world of its own in some ways. It's like, while listening to you, it feels to me like it's a world that I the bystander doesn't know, because what you're saying too is that maybe because, like in your words, you said something along the lines of the addict tends to blame, like tends to look outside and decide, oh well, it's because of this and because of this and because of that, and I think that that separates them, or whoever does that. It doesn't have to be an addict. Whoever does that now, to the one who receives that and actually takes that on, who's not in the same place, so to say, says, oh, it was my fault that this happened. That person is not going to come around and say, you know what, I just play this way. It's actually not your fault. You know, so they never meet. They never meet in that sort of more humble space of saying, oh, I tend to do that. I'm sorry, you know, like, can you meet me again? You know, I left you with this burden of blame that I put upon you. And when you came back and you defended, I even denied it and said, no, it really is you. And there's really no need for accountability on my part. And so this must create so much distance. And I think it's so good to know that, you know, if they could even just hand someone a business card and say, I'll have a propensity towards that. Please keep this in mind, you know, and maybe we can, you know, you won't be so hard on me and I won't be so hard on you. And we can work this out a little bit, you know?
Often, you know, over the years, and certainly more now that because I'm around at the treatment center, we get to be with families. You know, mom comes to see their son, or mom and dad come, and yeah, it's a tough one because you know, here's their son and or you know, and often in cases their daughter, but not at our treatment center, and they're like, you know, who is this person? Why do you know? And usually when they're in good shape, that's not happening, you know. But
Right.
with the blame, of course, comes anger,
Right.
and you know, and so for
and to the one who's in the middle of that, it's still very real. It's not like,
oh no,
it's
yeah,
not like they have the distance to say, maybe, just maybe,
yeah.
there's more to this than
We
what
have a
seems so
program.
obvious to me.
We have family program at the treatment centers, but we also have in the 12-step world, there's a program called Al-Anon that allows people to realize that, hey, they didn't cause it, you know, they can't cure it, you know, that it's not their fault, because often mom and dad go into, you know, years of blaming themselves, and you know, I had a friend that just passed away last week, and you know, an alcoholic friend who went off into the bush and died, and you know, I mean, they showed his death as accidental, but he, you know, it's alcoholism, you know, and so the prognosis is not good for the addict, and yet for the addict who gets the spiritual experience, it's phenomenal. It's just, you know, because they know they can't go back. You know, when they really get it, there's no place to go back to. Like Mooji has said, there's no go back to where.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. So there's no, they basically all the back doors have shut.
Everything.
You know, as soon as I turn around, I know what hell I'm gonna be ending in.
Yeah,
like,
but that knowing isn't enough.
Right. It's not.
No, that knowing's not enough.
Right. Because one also forgets or romanticizes.
Well, ego, you know, it's often said that, you know, on a Sunday morning, the alcoholic would pass the lie detector test when he says, I'm never going to drink again.
Right.
Clearly pass the lie detector test.
Yes.
And his wife and his mom and his dad, you know, were, wow, thank God. And then, of course, in time, they realize they can't, doesn't matter what he says, they can't trust him or her. You know,
there's a power that's controlling that.
Yeah.
The mere conviction of a Sunday morning does not. Because there's another type of burning. That's going on that needs some.
It's really our go-to.
Could I ask, when you you might be in the category where you would not need to to say on Sunday morning, I'm never going to do this again, because it's a mute point.
Well, yes, now.
Yeah. Is
yeah,
that kind of what the feel you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the alcoholic who's still who's still using or still
The active. Yeah.
that yeah, I'm not talking.
Well, I mean, back to Adrian and you. I guess I'm see if I can track back to where you're talking about. It's just that sense of what passed and closed doors, and it would almost be a farce for you to go up each Sunday and say, "Hey, I'm not going to do this."
Well, of course, it is a farce. That's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, so
it's
to
exactly,
that to get to that state where you get it, So.
and many don't. They just don't.
It's almost like Sunday morning, a whole different person is in that body.
Oh, Jekyll and Hyde for sure.
Right. Jekyll and Hyde, yeah.
For sure, and many never get it. The prognosis is for the addict and the alcoholic, and for many folks in that have gone into mental illness, if you will, the prognosis is not good, and because the belief is so strong that of their their unworthiness, their their self-hate, their the idea that they have to create an image of who they are that they know they're not. So the lie that we live in addiction is so clear, and what happens in the 12 steps is that we really drive that home, that we're like men who've lost their legs and not going to grow back, that we're like the cucumber after he's become pickled is never going to be a cucumber again. It's now a pickle forever, and we just drive that home over and over and over and over again, and many people have to go back out lots to get it. They have to really burn the house down, lose their families, until they wake up, and if they're fortunate enough to. And then there is a process, though, Adrian, in the 12 steps where they actually make a heartfelt amend. It's step 8 and 9 where we've gone through all of our relationships. We've written out about who we were angry at, who we were, our fears, our angers, our resentments, our selfishness, especially around relationships and with our partners, and we've written that all out, and then we get to make amends. And
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So if let's say you say, like, you talk about selfishness.
Yes.
So let's say, does a selfish person feel ashamed to say I'm selfish?
Well, generally, a selfish person doesn't know he's selfish.
Oh, okay. So the 12-step program invites the being to see, look, you're being quite selfish.
Oh, clearly.
Oh, okay. So it spells it out, kind of thing.
Oh, there's a paragraph where it says selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, we step in the toes of our fellows.
So if one is not willing to hear that, they'll walk away from that program.
Oh, exactly. And then it goes on to say that the only way to be rid of selfishness is through a spiritual experience.
Gotcha.
And
wow, this is quite amazing.
Yeah.
This is and I define that as everything violated I live, and the way to get around that is allowing all others volitional, voluminous, exciting, excellent expression. So evil and love, right? So I just put it into those two categories. They're under the influence of evil or under the influence of love.
Well, and I hear what you're saying in this language. Selfishness could be come under the idea of evil. Yes, and it is language, and
it's different than self-preservation, which is a separate coding part of love to keep you loving. Right? So, yeah, and evil will try to trick you and say, "Oh, self-preservation, self is discernment. It's okay. You're just being self-preservation." No, a little different.
Imagine, though, just for a minute, that if I totally surrender, if I really surrender, there's no need for me to focus on self-preservation. There is no need. I mean, yes, I have to look both ways before I cross the street, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I can
Yeah,
actually.
you really don't. Like, love is so like, whew,
So
taking
where
care
does
of us. It's very rare that that our cognitive mind has to take care of self-preservation.
so where does self-preservation come into the conversation? Is there, if I'm self-reliant or God-reliant, in using God as a a concept of a life reliant, love reliant, and self-preservation puts me in the position of self-reliant, and in a sense of the small self, you know, um, and what happens uh, when we totally surrender. Like when I say, look, I cannot manage my life. I'm done. And I really mean it. And I do it, and I start to practice it, and I pray to have, for direction. And I drop into that space of not needing anything, and having absolute, faith in each moment that this is exactly what needs to happen in this moment, and living that. There's no conversation of self-preservation. It's done. It's taken care of. If I died in this moment, it's perfect. It's done. And
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. The what I'm understanding from what I'm exploring on the science of love, I guess, is that it's not that it's more like evil is kind of against everything and even itself, and love is like for everything. Where's it going with this? Um, Sometimes my pain can kick in and I can lose my train of thought here. So self-preservation, while we're awake, gets a gift from self-preservation. It's like, hey, you do this awake thing, but if you mess it up, I'm going to kick in and go into fight, flight, or freeze mode and take over the hardware because you're not doing it right, or we got to get out of here or something. Right?
sure.
And what happens then is if I've taken some, is that in the past, if we've been exposed to things that are traumatic as a kid, and then we get into fight, flight, or freeze, we popped into self-preservation as the operation mode, and
Okay,
then
I get that.
that doesn't work. That doesn't work for real life adult stuff, for spirituality and stuff like that. So when self-preservation kind of literally and sometimes kept us alive, and then that's the scenario we go through for how to keep us alive. Great, love kept us alive, but that's not the and then evil kicks in and tries to play with that and say, I want to be on my evil way too, and it'll take
Are you
advantage
saying
of that.
evil or ego?
Evil will take advantage of everything to try to get itself everything away from everything else, everything violated, so I live, and it takes advantage of that self-preservation good thing, so that, hey, if hardware is in danger, self-preservation will kick in, your conscious will not be available, and your body will do something to keep you alive. Great. So that's the love self-preservation programming within our body, right? So and then when we experience past stuff that's not in the actual category of our life or limb in danger, the self-preservation mindset can kick in, and we think that's, and then the other philosophy can take
So
over. Evil violated.
Lowell.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that self-preservation is not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's just not the operation mode that we want to work on, and we probably have been working on it because of past stuff that was very similar to where self-preservation mode seems we were put in fight, flight, or freeze. So
Lowell.
no shame, no guilt.
Lowell.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I'm listening.
Okay. So imagine though that, it seems to me that you've spent a lot of time looking at this from this particular angle, and that's super. What's come up for me in my experience is to let all of that go, not to deny that fight or flight exists in this, not to deny that self-preservation or fear can exist in this, and just to 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 just surrender it, to just say, okay, it isn't a fact anymore. It's a story. It was a fact, and it ran my life from a place of me believing it is a fact. And now it's a story. It doesn't have a place in really in the message that I'm carrying. I acknowledge it when people are living in it, because they want to be seen, and I think they need to be seen, and they feel loved when they're seen. But I don't acknowledge it to leave them there. I mean, if they want to stay there, that's theirs, but only to give them a way back or a way in. So I think we should probably wrap it up tonight. It was great. And Lola, I thank you for coming, and I hope you come back and because I enjoy you being with us and bringing your perspective, and hopefully that there's something here for us to share with you as well.
Yeah, what I learned here from tonight very powerfully is that just recently I realized that everything is a simulation except for now. Everything is a simulation except for now.
Yes.
Everything is merely a simulation except for now. And I learned these
It's a great note to end on.
And then I realized, well, okay. So now with your being in the now and telling us about how that's in connecting, meditating, getting into connection with infinite intelligence, then there's an infinite intelligence. I'm like, there's an infinite intelligence simulation that wants me involved. And you're in it, and you're on it, and you're doing it, right? And that's why I'm super excited. You're like, be in the now, and I see it happening with you, and it's going to happen with me more better, and with everyone. Now that I'm like, oh wow, this meditation's been tough for me because of the breathing thing, but just to be in the moment and just to sink into the divine, or infinites. What scenarios is it doing that wants me a part of? And that's the now that's happening in that. That is the scenario, and it's just like it's really
can we
beautiful.
let go of
Thank
one
you.
more thing?
Really, really, really beautiful. Thank you.
Can we let go of one more thing?
Yeah, I'm just expressing gratitude, but yeah, sure.
Well, thank you. Yeah, but this is a big one for me, and it's probably the biggest one for me to let go of, and I struggle with it. Is the need for me to understand. Is to let go of this need to know or need to understand, and so I
You just helped me to understand something, David.
yes, thank you.
Now I know why you say that. I never understood why you kept saying that.
What?
The whole thing about letting go of trying to understand.
Yeah.
Now I understand.
I agree. I write my own scripture, and I wrote like the ending of my scripture ends with scripture. The joy and wow is in the doing, or in your case, the nowing. Like.
Mr. Lowell is quite a thinker. Thank you for coming and being with us.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I appreciate this. This has been such a blessing.
Need to know, need to understand. Paul used to say, understanding's the booby prize. And
yeah, we don't need that tree of knowledge of good and evil anymore. That knowledging tree is fun. We've eaten many fruits of that. We understand where good goes. We understand where evil goes. We understand where knowledging goes. Let's just celebrate each other right/correctly now and do the loving.
I like that.
Yeah, we don't need, you don't have to be, I just rest with, just, you're talking about peace. Things can get, whatever things go. If I lost all function, I lost my arms, lost my legs, can't do anything, can't hardly think. Everybody has to take care of me, or I just die in minutes. Almost coma, I would still be taken care of. Love would still take care of me. Everything would be okay.
Because there is no you.
Yeah, the me is not this kind of body thing, and the me taking care of me is not the scenario that love is. It's like, that's like, hey, if the taking fear to its nth degree in my heart, I was like, what? And I was like, hey, love is still taking care of me. And then on the flip side of that is, love is like, not only do you have two legs, do you have two arms? I'm with you now. We're talking, having this conversation. Like, it's not in that direction at all. And
All right, Noel.
I love it.
Yeah, okay, we'll turn it off for a bit. I love having you here. Thank you. Thanks, Adrian. Yeah. Trevor, if you're there, thank you. And to everybody that dropped in, thanks so much for being here. And you are there. Hey, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being with us tonight. We're every morning around 9 o'clock, we're doing a reading from this little book. It's called the 24-Hour Day Book. And it was just kind of a spiritual guidebook written for the 12 steps in 1954 by a man who obviously had an awakening and of sorts. And so I'm enjoying it every day as a thought for the day, a meditation for the day, and a prayer for the day. In this little book, it might be even one of the original printings, because it had a price tag on it of $1.50. And, so I think it was one of the original printings. And millions of them are out there, and I've been reading it every morning at 9 o'clock because it's a daily thing, and it's been fun, and I never know what's going to come out from the reading, because I actually haven't planned this, but generally I don't read it before I read it online. I have a few times, but mostly you just kind of sit down and pick it up, and we go through it and talk about it. So if you have an interest in more depth in what happens in that 12-step world, that comes out every day in that reading, and then we have it on Facebook, of course, and we have it on YouTube as well. And that's it. So love you guys. Thank you. How busy are you this week, bud? We get together? Can't hear you.
This week should be possible. Yes, things are becoming a little bit more organized and under control in some way. And
I'll call you Wednesday morning. Trevor and I are going to go for a drive tomorrow, but I'll call you Wednesday.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'll come to you wherever you are.
Well, it's nice weather, so we can, in the evening I have time, so we can just sit in the balmy weather and have a little chat.
I'll call you Wednesday. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Good night, guys.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Adrian.
Yeah, nice seeing you,
everyone.
Trevor. Nice to see you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
nice
everyone
meeting you,
taking
Lowell.
time.
Nice to see you,
Oh,
Lowell.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and love it if you subscribe to us on YouTube. We're having fun building that little channel, and that's it. Love you, and call if you need anything. If you just want to chat, or if you're struggling in any way, and maybe I can open a door for you, or help you to see the door. I'd love to be of service. Thanks. Okay.
Good night.
Good night, brother.